They had it all set up.
This meeting, this evening, we're going to cover a number of items in our work session, and we're also going to have a presentation tonight on where we stand in technology to bring everybody up to speed on where we are in that item. But let's start this meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need to take a 5-minute break just to set that stuff up. Okay. Between? Yeah. Okay.
He goes, sorry, I said it there.
You got it.
Tonight's meeting is our regularly scheduled work session. The meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware they are being videotaped. And we also have a sign up there so we get your correct name and address on the sheet up there. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak during this meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential for those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments. This limit will then permit time for those who wish to speak to the board. Wherever members of the audience exceed the time limit, the board president may ask the individual to lead the microphone to the next speaker. Now, during a work session, after we have finished an item or a number of items, we'll ask if there's any comments from the audience. So this is not an action meeting, so there's no audience of citizens beforehand. The audience of citizens comes after the discussion. The first item this evening that we have on the work session is the support of the staff handbook. There's been a committee at work over the past year looking at the benefits that we deliver to our staff, whether they be the support staff, the administrators. Of course, the teachers' benefits are all covered by contract. During that period of time, in researching our benefits package, there had been a lot of, over the past years, there had been memos and communications and different things that left some of the benefits package unclear. So we had, with the assistance of one of our solicitors, we had the support staff handbook put together, had it reviewed by our financial people and our administration, and we have completed that work. So tonight is a discussion relative to that handbook. I want to ask Jim Sowers. Jim, you were going to start down a list in another meeting we had, which I stopped you. Would you kind of run over what happened the last time we had the discussion and how we got to this handbook and where we are?
Okay. As part of the paid leave task force, the school district assembled a database for salary and fringe benefit information, and we put together a grid or a spreadsheet that documents all types of employees in the school district and the applicable fringe benefits. The salary information was verified as well as the fringe benefit status. The database was put together initially for the 1999-2000 fiscal year, although it would have carryover benefits for future budget years. One of the items that we came across was that the support staff handbook was not formally approved at a Board of School Directors meeting, so that's one of the reasons why we have it for discussion this evening. And we would also suggest that as an ongoing measure, every June, the salaries and fringe benefits of all our employees would be formally documented before the board as what I would suggest would be the final step to the budget process.
Thank you, Jim. So right now, I'd like to open the discussion relative to the services support staff handbook, and with the goal that we can reach some agreement here at what that, either the book or modify the book, so that at our action meeting on a week Thursday, is that we can approve this phase. Now, there is another phase that is in process related to the administrators, which will follow much like this one, but that'll be handled by board policy, which is still being developed by our solicitor, so that won't be a discussion item or an action item this month. Frank, I understand you had a question relative to the manual.
Two things. Is it the service staff handbook or the support? I think it says support on
Says
here.
support on our agenda. but
Well,
service-
is that one of the same thing? I'd say-
Service staff. That's what it's always been referred to as the service staff handbook.
In looking this thing over, I believe on page 8, item M, has been discontinued by the state last year.
Frank, what page?
Page 8, item M.
Thank you.
I believe the outside payroll service that I work with had told me this had been discontinued last year. So if we could have our,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Question, it was just brought to my attention, copies of this handbook have not been given to the public out there. John, do you have copies
get
out there?
them.
If anybody would like to have a copy of that, he's getting copies for you now, but go ahead, Frank.
Sorry.
in any event, I was advised by our outside payroll service that this was discontinued. So if we're gonna work on it, maybe this should go back to our solicitors and have them, one of them look it over.
What was that again, Frank?
Page 8, item M.
8M?
I was advised by my payroll service that this was discontinued.
The
The
requirement is
Reconciliation Act of
discontinued.
1996 was eliminated in 1998. The date of the act is 1996.
We'll check.
Okay.
Okay, we'll check with our solicitor. Anybody else have any? Yes, Terry.
Yes, on page 9, section C, nepotism. The way this reads, I can't, it should have, in the middle of the first sentence, if hired, will not supervise or be directly supervised, rated, or evaluated by. It goes one way, it's gotta go both ways.
Let me just ask Vince. Vince, you were the developer.
I don't think this section C contains the new policy.
There is a new policy.
Yeah, I was
I don't
assuming
think it
that was the
includes
new
all the
one.
language, because we reference the law and the definition of the law too. and-
Then we
and
need to
this is-
change that.
This is only a.
This whole document needs to go back to somebody then.
Well, let's talk about it at a work session. We're going to talk about different things.
So item C, the nepotism should be
Should
reviewed as it
incorporate the new
relates to our policy
policy.
that exists.
The language of the new policy. If that's different than what this is.
John, do you have any comments about this book or not? Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Which order? Do you want to stay this way, then let Bill
It's all
make
right,
out?
we can
Have
jump
to
around.
teach them.
Bill,
Bruce,
I'll
go
come
ahead.
after you,
Okay.
and then we'll go.
Right to left, but not this.
One of the things I looked for in here is a list of all our different categories of personnel that will fall under this handbook. And if we turn to page 24, under the title or the heading sick leave reimbursement, they list 5 different categories of employee. Is that a definition of all our categories?
No, not the new one. We have a list of about, what, 20-some?
Where's the list?
It was part of the sick leave vacation task force development.
Well, there's,
But it's not in this book, is it?
No, it should be though.
I think it should be part of this. And then anybody who gets hired knows what category they're in, and therefore they can go to this book
That would work.
and cross-reference where they fall.
That would work real well with Jim's suggestion of us every June, part of the budget process, approving the category benefits and salaries so that there's no misunderstanding about what we're giving and dealing out.
Yeah, so when somebody's hired, they have a specific category, these are your
Right.
benefits, not negotiated either way.
Right.
This is what you got, I agree.
No variation, this is it.
But that's not in here, and I think it should be.
This isn't right.
okay.
Are you clear what that is?
No, say that again. So we want a listing of the
The
categories.
different categories
Supplying
and
services.
and what qualifies you to be in whatever category
Is that
you're
what you have in your
hired
hand, Jim? Anything else, Bill?
for. No, thank you.
I think some of the handouts that we received on the task force may be beneficial in some of that charge. Mr. Sowers did take and classify all of our various employees All you would have to do is isolate those that come under the definition of service staff. In other words, eliminate the administrators and teachers. And really, the rest of the list would probably all fall under service staff after that. But that, I think it's an excellent suggestion. As far as clarifying the language of this booklet, on page 19, we have a listing that breaks our employees down by category. It's called, it says it's eligibility requirements, but the 19? Page 19. And it breaks down categories which have really not been clearly defined. You read a 12-month salary employee who there is someone who works a consistent full-time schedule are entitled to all benefits. But there's no definition of what qualifies for a full-time schedule or for the 12-month category. As our administrators, it's a 260, 62-day position, but there is no definition. And if you read down to the 10-month salary, it's also, there are employees who work a full-time schedule, are entitled to all benefits except vacation and holidays falling outside their work year. Again, that language is the same as a 12-month salaried employee. There's no definition by what the required work hours or work year or any set criteria.
So we need a definition of what a 12-month and a 10-month schedule.
We certainly should be defining what are the minimum, what is the minimum requirements for that, just as we have for our administrative staff. We have 10-month and we have 12-month administrators. Secondly, the third category, I don't even believe belongs there at all together. It reads 12 or 10-month hourly employees. Well, they should either be a 12-month salaried / hourly employees receiving a benefit package and a 10-month salaried or hourly employee that meets the basic same criteria, just a different form of payment, who have one benefit. But putting 10-month hourly employees and categorizing them and saying their benefit package is now less than the other two, but the same as for a 10-month hourly employee makes no sense. The requirements, the language, who work a full-time schedule of 24 hours per week and/or in excess of 900 hours. This has led to a lot of confusion. Employees who work 25 hours but no set calendar year, it could be 160 days out of the year, it could be 260. It could be compared to someone who's working 900 hours, and the same employee working 2,000 hours can fall into the same category and all be there with benefits with the same as 10 and 12 months, except these employees, despite their work year, do not have vacation, holidays, personal leave with reason, or disability insurance. Somewhere there needs to be a clearer distinction in how we define what is a 10-month employee, whether salaried or hourly, 12-month, and whatever this category is supposed to apply to, it certainly should have a distinction not only in benefits, but the work criteria.
Jim, did you understand?
Well,
What she's saying is we got to more clearly define what these job descriptions are.
I think you will find that in Jim's new database, he actually did classify 12-month salaried and hourly together, not realizing that if you classify someone as an hourly employee under this policy book or support staff book, it doesn't have the official status of policy, that by this book, if someone's 12 months, if they're classified as hourly, they're not supposed to be getting the same thing as a 12-month salary, even though they may be working the exact same schedule. So this is drawing distinctions in the policy or in this practice book here that we would probably have to make some revisions with existing staff in order to uphold. Because I believe you're going to find more and more of our employees will simply be classified as salaried to maintain their benefits, although they are actually, working under an hourly basis and overtime and et cetera.
How do you deal with the overtime issue, Jim? If an employee is scheduled to be a 480-hour, category, and then they come in and work an additional 200 or 300 hours in overtime, say taking a second job, and then under this handbook, they would be entitled to benefits because they broke the hourly threshold. no matter what their job classification.
We don't have an hourly threshold
Well,
though.
it says 900 hours.
900.
No, that just says that, yeah, if they're in excess of 900, they move up to that one.
Our
But there's
part-time
no,
employees could be people who work in the cafeteria, they go
Right.
drive bus.
oh,
And then
yeah.
now these two jobs obviously put them over the threshold, and they are 10-month employees.
Well, Vince
So
is
do we
right.
deal with that as a separate issue? I would expect at that point they would get them, because
They do.
they would hit the.
I think we
the-
deal with that as with the concept of regularly scheduled hours. But if I could continue with Vicky's question, the 10-month salaried or 10-month hourly staff classifications or 12-month salaried or 12-month hourly, to me, that means a 261-day work calendar or work schedule and a 210-day calendar or a 10-month activity, depending on the job classification. Hourly driven payroll or time card submissions versus a salaried employee, which is a
Yeah.
fixed amount
Right.
per payroll on a biweekly basis, I would refer to the exempt or non-exempt employee status. So I think that's,
Right, but the bottom line is, we shouldn't, internally, the distinction isn't necessarily there on benefits between 12 hours salaried as far as vacation, holidays, personal leave, without reason and disability, is there, Jim? I mean, if you've got someone, even though they're an hourly paid employee, if they're working 262 days under an hourly pay schedule,
Let me.
they're not being reduced from these benefits, are they?
no, I would think they're full-time 12-month employees paid on an hourly basis, not
But getting-
non-exempt from overtime, but eligible for all the associated fringe
Right.
benefits of a full-time
Which is not what
status
this,
individual.
what this page is.
Jim, what I'd like,
says.
what I'm gonna ask you and Dr. Hassler to work together and go through this eligibility, go over these different things
Okay.
with Sweet, our solicitor, and clean these up and make sure they really, these definitions. First, we've got to define what a 12-month and a 10-month salary employee is, and then, but make sure that we have all the categories of employees, and it's clearly understandable to each employee what bracket they fit into in this area. Did you do that?
Yes.
Okay, along with that?
We both have questions.
Okay, well, I'll get to you. I haven't got to Bruce Gordon yet.
Right. No, I know you're going through this. We have some serious decisions whether we actually consider the criteria that is written under part-time employees for what's there, as well as these seasonal employees. That language also needs to be cleared up, and it says
They're gonna
that
clean this whole section up.
clean that up. It doesn't make any sense to say any seasonal employee listed above will be considered for part-time, either you're seasonal or you're part-time. But the point being that out of our records, there's only 36 employees out of 1,685 that are not on one form of benefit plan or another.
Well, they're gonna clean this up.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the low thresholds that we have here. When you consider what it takes to actually meet that 900 hours, or even to be anything if 500 hours or over, I mean, if you're working 262 days, you put into 2.5 hours a day, you've made the benefits plan. Similarly, those who are working 4 3/4 hours for 162 days would meet the criteria. And essentially, we have almost every single employee in the district on one benefit plan or another.
I'd like to move away from this item because they're gonna rework it all.
Clear that up, okay? The other issues, we had some discussions regarding emergency days.
Where you at?
I'm working my way back, cutting out of some things here as I go through.
Well, while you're looking for that, let me go on.
On the emergency days, Jim, Don, that one dealt with the fact that, my understanding was that those.
Where are you in the book at? What page you on?
28, 29?
28, 29. No, that's not.
No, that's
not
emergency
it.
closings. There's one of the provisions inside our benefit plan is also for emergency days. Emergency leave is on page 14. My personal feeling is that with over 30 forms of paid and unpaid leave in the district, I personally do not believe that this is a necessary benefit. It's given on supposedly under isolated circumstances, but it's also very difficult to weigh an approval versus a disapproval for an emergency
Well,
leave.
emergency leaves is part of the teacher's contract.
Well,
Let me just go on. It's part of the teacher's contract,
I
and
realize that's
and that is rightly or wrongly, it's part of the teacher's contract. The emergency leave has always been, because it's in that contract, to most employees, it was given to all the other employees also. Now, the emergency leaves are directly under the control of the superintendent, whether if they allow them and what reason they're allowing them, and have that control. So it's the.
well, that
it's
was
the-
my next comment. This says Director of Human Resources. And we
Well-
were told it was approval required by the superintendent. So
Human
there-
Resources, who then reports to the superintendent. It's the superintendent that's going to tell the Human Resources as the guidelines that should be followed in that area.
Okay, shouldn't this though say that the approval is required by the superintendent, or is perfectly okay that it comes? My understanding was that it was required for it to have the approval of the superintendent.
As the superintendent's responsible for anything in any case, I have no.
How many emergency
Maybe-
leaves do we have?
It does, there's
With
unlimited.
1,500 employees or 800 in this category, quite a number.
And there's no limit.
Well, with 1,500 employees, sure, you're having things, there's a lot that are requested that aren't approved also. I think if you want to be written in a way in consultation with the superintendent, but this is something that's almost a daily occurrence in that office that
The
would require
difference-
approval.
The difference being that if you take an emergency leave and you save one of your other days, the other days have a buyout value that an emergency leave doesn't have. So you save other days. Sick days,
Could say
personal
So
days,
use your personal
vacation
days
days, bereavement days, jury days.
Well,
The other is, on the definitions, Jim, we have these other categories that we had on page 19. But also on page 24, we list a per diem employee. It comes in, it's in here throughout every once in a while. That is another one that if we're going to carry a per diem employee, I'd like to know who is a per diem employee. Is that a substitute? Does a substitute have sick leave reimbursement and sick leave days? What does it take to be qualified under per diems? Because as we know them, per diem people are usually who we hire for intermittent, short-term basis, and for the most part. But there are a few different employee benefits throughout this book where it indicates there's a per diem employee.
What page, Vicki?
24.
Well, you'll see it under 24. Quite frankly, a per diem employee is treated like a 10 and 12-month employee in many cases as you look through the benefits. And there's several other places that it's also referenced.
all right, I'm going to go along and get somebody else. Bruce, what's your question?
Thank you.
We'll come back.
Just not to want to kill trees here, but I think we keep talking about this matrix that was developed out of the salary
Should have them.
committee. I think the board needs to see the work of the committee in printout so that we can work with it. I think a few people that were on that committee saw it, and the rest of us haven't seen it yet. Maybe I don't have it because I wasn't on the board at the time, but beyond that, I think this booklet needs to spell out everything. I don't care if the sentences say the same thing from one category to the next. Let's be clear as mud on this, in this book that we hand out to employees, that everything with regards to their benefits and their job classification is in here. Likewise, I think we need to ask our solicitor Sweet to please check this for consistency. There's the issues of the 900 hours. Vicki had brought up that there was some inconsistency between the part-time employees on page 19, part-time listed as 500 to 899, and the line above it discussing in excess of 900 hours. Well, there's that, that 1 hour someone's going to hit us with that. I work 900 hours. Where do I fall? Well, let's be consistent. Let's be very clear on this stuff, because if we need to support it, and our payroll needs to support it, we need to know that we've got a Bible, if you will, to go by this matrix. and this booklet, that the employees know exactly where we stand with how we're gonna pay them and what benefits they have eligible to them. That's it. Thanks.
Vince, you had a
Just on the same questions that Vicky had, a lot of the descriptions under the eligibility requirements are completely vague, or at least not defined and matched up to our new matrix of categories and classifications. So we have to incorporate that, just like Bill asked for, to totally clear up this issue, and then he can actually put these eligibility requirements under categories, so that we don't have any question about what an employee gets or should have gotten when they came to work for us. And that should also match up to our current existing staff, which is something else we should have to do besides hand the handbook out. Make sure that it's exactly what we're practicing.
anything else?
Yes.
Donna?
Donald, in areas that are not finance in nature, I have concerns on page 27. Whoever is going to be correcting this book after we leave this evening. Under C, appropriate director, should be very clear that that's not a school director. And under D, the superintendent, that second paragraph, last step of a complaint procedure shall be level D, and the superintendent's decision shall be final. I know, I'm not so sure that relates directly to policy, maybe it does, but I know from time to time there's been situations where issues of complaint and procedures have required or a request of a board hearing. There is no place in here where the board is placed into that final decision process, even if it is our approval or disapproval for a recommended firing. Also, that paragraph, when it comes to the finality of a complaint procedure, has left out our solicitor, and I don't think that should either in our case or the superintendent's case. Also on page 33, maybe I've been here too long, but we've all seen enough quacks, either directors or employees, that we should be very concerned about access to a personnel file. And when I look at those under access to a personnel file, staff members' personnel file may be given to the following persons without the consent of the employee. And it's the superintendent and a designee and/or director of human resources, the employee supervisor, the board of directors. I know, in the years I've been here, there's a group, I could list 5 people that fall in these categories that I wouldn't want to have my file without my knowledge, permission, or without the oversight of the solicitor. So I think that the board personnel should go back and take a whole look at that category too. That's all I have.
There were some questions over here, Terry.
My concern is this service staff handbook. Is this for all employees?
Not contractual, non-professional, not teachers, everybody else.
Not teachers and not administrators?
Not
Is that correct?
Administrators are under a different,
Right.
yeah.
And yet it deals with your supervisory people, I think, and I don't know where I saw it. There's a couple places in here where it says that you need to do something, and if you're the other employee, you need to do it a different way. And do we need to have both in there if we have 2 different books? Shouldn't we just stick with what this employee group
They should
has
know-
obligations for?
They should know what the procedure will be, so if it's them that needs to do something in case of disciplinary action, they should know what the step is for the supervisor above them to handle. You would want to know that.
Yeah, and I can, such and such should be reported to the supervisor. And the supervisor will in turn take it to up the chain of command, whatever that is.
The employee should know
But the
what that chain is.
detail, what I saw was the detail on both areas. I don't think you need the detail on both areas, just the detail for this area with comment that it goes up the chain of command or whatever.
You could have some people falling under
Or
the
a full
service
book.
staff that is a supervisor. In other words, under the food services, there are those managers at building level managers, but they are a service staff employee
And they
category.
fall under this.
But they are supervisory and they're,
I
they then
question
move
that,
to perhaps Dottie Irwin on
Right.
that chain of.
that's why I didn't use the example that I just found, but there was more than one that I saw
All
in
right,
here.
something to look at.
All right,
Frank,
Just
you had
be
a question?
consistent, it's
Okay.
the same
I
thing
agree with
Bruce
you.
was
I agree
saying.
with you. Frank?
on page 34, item F, policy on accepting gifts. I'm going to read this, and maybe I've been around here too long. In order to avoid any conflicts of interest, it is North Penn District's policy to discourage employees from accepting gifts from organizations that sell merchandise or services to us. Gifts amounting to less than $25 in value should be diplomatically refused. Does that mean it's okay to accept more than $25?
No, 25 is the limit.
That's not what it says.
That's not what it says.
I know. That's
So it's
another
okay to
one
accept
spot.
more?
I mean, there's a
I can
lot of
give
poor
Jim-
language.
I can give Bob more than 20, I can give you $100, but I
Don't
can't
give me
give
a
you
cheap
24.
gift.
Don't give me
Actually, the ethics rule,
You're right.
applies to gifts
Yeah.
of 25,
So if,
value of
so
25.
Don, if you could have a
Good point.
solicitor look at that?
Yes.
Thank you.
There's a lot,
Yes.
What, on gifts?
Yeah.
Is that why we stopped picking
I guess
Pollyannas
I-
on the board at Christmas time?
This should be refused.
What I've been listening to here, there's, this book requires a lot of work and clarification of, based upon existing policies, based upon job classifications that we reworked last year, and where there's some redundancy or where there's some clear statements in here. So what I'm going to do is turn this book back over to Jim and the administration and to Sweet and ask for a rework on this. We probably won't have this ready for next Thursday. Looks like there's a lot more work in here than can be done and be reviewed.
Jim, I think I'll give you my highlighted book. It
Have
might
the
be-
receipt of the handbook
Yeah.
designed a little better so you don't lose the last page of requirements when they sign it and tear it out. Because they'll lose, you know.
I know, I thought that was ridiculous too, it had to be
I mean,
perforated.
I know
What
they
is it?
have
You
to
give it
acknowledge
the
that they've been
employee.
given it, but, you know, you're about to remove a bunch of things on the back page.
Good
In other
point.
words, it didn't make sense to sign something that was staying in the employee's book when it was for the employer's protection.
Is there anything?
One more thing, Don.
Yes.
Jim, I see you started a new process of allowing, of putting vacation time on board on a front of the year accrual throughout the year rather than at the end of the year. Are you also doing that for the first year of employment? In other words, someone that's been here 3 months has
Yes.
prorated and 6 months, and are they eligible to take it at that time?
With approval.
Yes.
But they are, in other words, if they've been here 6 months and they had 10 days, they have 5 days that they could take in 6 months. Then another line in here, it says, if a new employee terminates employment before completing a full year, then no vacation will be paid out. So we have two choices. Either we do not allow first-year employees to draw down their employment until 12 months, or we change that line because we can't uphold it. I don't know how we go collecting the vacation time. If they, page 12, I'm sorry, about the second paragraph,
Okay.
beyond those dates.
Yep.
And I don't know where the board stands on that, though. Do we feel that we should ensure that an employee's been here at least 12 months before they begin pulling paid vacation time?
Isn't that what we do now?
That's what I just asked Jim. He just started allowing and providing for vacation time throughout the year, and I just asked him, does that include
Started a number
first-year
of years ago.
employees? And I believe we may want to make first-year employees an exception to that.
I know we ran into the pay scale, or the pay timing issue, where people would be hired and they wouldn't show up in September, but we have pay in July and August. So I know we resolved that by producing, 7 different alternatives for the administration to take pay, and try to scale out July and August into the other months so that we don't have that issue,
But if someone comes.
somebody comes here, I heard it, just, as a matter of fact, just yesterday, an administrator said that when they come here, they're not entitled to,
For 1 year.
for 1 year.
That's what I thought the policy was, and then.
I think it's been
I saw
probably
the-
inconsistent.
I
can tell you.
That's what we spent.
I know
this
that from when I
investigation
came,
on.
I know just personally from when I came here that it was accrued as I came.
Okay.
Okay, well, the situation is Jim has now proposed switching that over, so do we feel that's right, or do we want to keep this language and for the first year, not have
Think you need to be
the
consistent.
excess for those vacation days in the first year. It would mean someone with 10 vacation days in 6 months, before leaving, they could take 5 paid days vacation and send us notice that they're gone. I mean, or, and
There should be memos on that wasn't supposed to happen. Bose had a memo to that effect, that it doesn't accrue until after completion of
on
the
the first year, that's
Right,
what.
there are memos to that effect.
There's okay.
Administrative
Now, it
guidelines?
doesn't surprise me, it went over to the black hole and we never saw it again.
Are
But
there
I
administrative
know it
guidelines
exists.
in the book? Is that what you're referring to? Or just a memo? Is it administrative guidelines?
It was administrative
or
directive.
policy?
Well, then it
Yes.
sounds to me, then this language that's in this book on page 12, we do want to keep, and that Jim would have to change the plans for this first year's vacation. After they've reached 1 year, there's no issue
Well, let us
with it,
research
right?
that and see what we have on file.
It's just something that
and
it
also
began when he did this
Chuck
new
Sweet.
send-out, and I noticed that, and thought that was a difference too from my own history as what the rule was.
All right, I'm gonna wind up the discussion on this. We have a lot of work on here. It's probably gonna take a couple of reviews to get this redone. There's, the changes made over the past year, so this book requires a lot of work.
Can I just ask one other thing with regards to the salary review committee and this whole compensation group? Are our computer systems able to handle all these variances with regards to people carrying overtime, carrying over sick days from past employment, from year to year, changing jobs, changing salary levels and what their per diem sick time pay would be? Are we all set? Is the Panamation system able
Yes.
to track all those nuances?
Yes.
Well, wait, Jim, actually, it gets adjusted to the new salary. That's the unfortunate part.
Oh, so
If someone clocked it at one job on one rate, on those vacation days, if they got it at $40,000 and a related per diem and moved to an $80,000 job, that value is changing to the $80,000 job for all the past days. Is that what you were trying to find about?
That's what I was asking. I don't
At
have
the
a problem
rate.
with that. You always-
And so is sick
Retirement,
days.
you always get paid based on
And-
your last salary.
And sick days, I think tend to move there. That's
fine.
another problem.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The other issue about whether or not we let people take vacation, I read through the administrative guidelines. You'll research this. I don't recall seeing any memo on that. But in corporate life, you earn your vacation time. Now, if someone takes off after a year and they used vacation time that they hadn't really fully accrued, then I would think we'd try and dock them in their final pay. But I don't see how we really can block someone from taking vacation day for a whole year. That seems rather
That's
drastic.
something that has to be reviewed.
Yeah, let's review it.
We're gonna move on to,
Holidays and vacations are two different
Take
things.
it without pay.
Right, we're
It's
talking
one thing to take a
vacation.
holiday, these were vacations.
Right, I'm saying,
Right.
how do you get away with, how do you ask someone not to take a vacation day for a whole year? I mean, if it's stipulated and it's laid out in paperwork and we've got it, then that's fine, but if it's not there now, I wouldn't support it going forward.
we have to look at that.
Yeah, okay.
All right, is there anybody in the audience that has any comments relative to this very confusing benefits package? If not, I want to move ahead with a couple other items.
Take on the next item.
The next two items deal with a request for additional personnel in the area of special education, an additional special education teacher, and 2 additional special education assistants. And I'd asked Mr. Rajnak to give a little bit of background on both of those.
In the first case, in the special education teacher, we'd like to add an additional teacher at Gwynedd Square. We've had a number of students who have transferred into the district who are in need of special education. We've also identified additional students who are over-enrolled in those classrooms. And in order for us to be in compliance with the state standards and regulations with the class size chart, we need to add an additional special education teacher.
Lou, is this like for Gwynedd Square, that catchment area, is this an anomaly, or are we having kids coming in from all over?
Over the course of the year so far, we've added several teachers. We added one a combination between North Wales and Inglewood. And what we've found is during registration time, we've had more kids move in this year that needed special education than we've had in the past.
Okay, but is this a specific area, a new development go in? Is there something that's
That I don't know,
off?
Donna. I haven't looked at that part of it.
any minority ESL students, any?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And is there a possibility that because special ed, that also most of these folks, these kids come with special busing, could they be?
Not the kids at Gwinnett Square. The youngsters we're looking at here are all Gwinnett Square residents who will be coming in on regular transportation. There's nobody off the top of my head I can think of that's going on a special transportation run going in there.
That could be taken to another school where
Right.
it's down?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean,
these
that
are-
was something that we looked at, and we always look at that. We look at, can we move teachers from one building to another? And we try and do all of that before we say, yeah, we need to add another teacher. We kind of exhausted all those possibilities before we came to the board.
Any comments, or move that right to the work session?
I think Lou's favorite line is, in order to be in compliance with.
I understand that, yeah.
It's like over the barrel. You
That's
got-
like I put my head down when I said
You
that.
can't argue with that one.
You can't argue with your brother.
He just has a sign. That's like that.
He knows how to minimize debate.
Go ahead with the other one, Lou.
And the other issue, we're looking specifically for, in the first case, one-on-one assistance with a youngster who has a physical handicap, who is at Hatfield. This is a youngster who is, the handicap is regressive, and the youngster needs more and more support. He spends the majority of his time in the regular education classroom, but has difficulty in maneuvering and doing even normal rudimentary tasks such as writing and those types of things. So we've been very creative with how we have worked with him, but again, he needs additional assistance. And in the other case, this is really like this is a success story in that we have a youngster who we are transcribing regular print into Braille, and he is learning Braille so quickly and moving through that program so quickly that we need to have more time to keep up with him as he's learning the Braille. So that we're adding for an additional half hour, and we feel that should do it. So, and again, both of these last two positions can be paid for through IDEA funds, which is federal funds.
Any comments, or put that on the action item?
Yes.
Those items really conclude our work session for this evening. Is anybody in the audience want to speak to any of those items? Seeing no one. One other item I want to comment before we move ahead is that this evening, between 7 and 7:30 this evening, we had an executive session covering a personnel item. Then there was a proposed executive session to follow this meeting tonight to cover another item related to personnel. But there's been a number of board members that approached me and said they would like to postpone that executive session. So I'm trying to get a feeling for the members here tonight if you want to stay for the executive session.
Executive
or have
session
it
this
postponed to the
evening?
next meeting, huh?
That's this evening afterwards?
Yes.
Well, I'd rather do one here.
I have some concerns that I wanted to bring before the rest of the board, but I think I need a little bit more information. And while I'm sitting here, I think I want to get that information, and then I'm going to discuss it with Don and see if we have an executive session in 2 weeks, next week.
This was an executive session that you wanted, Frank?
He had some items brought from.
I had called him last night about some concerns, and tonight, before the meeting, I got some additional information, and I hadn't talked to Don when he made his announcement to
Well,
us.
it's not a matter of who can't attend. He has the purpose of the meeting is
So-
pulled off the table.
I understand, Vicki.
Just a few minutes ago, I just requested, let's
I
go.
thought he was asking for a head count.
I was, but he cleared it up, so it's being postponed, so there will not be an executive session followed. So the next item will be a glorious presentation on where we stand in technology, and we need about a 5-minute break
So
to set
Debbie's on?
everything up.
Debbie's on?
Debbie's on.
You're on, Debbie.
She needs 5 minutes to set up the presentation.
Tonight, what we'd like to do is provide about a 25-minute overview on our technology. We're in phase 2 of our technology program, so we're going to review review quickly phase one, what was implemented, but more importantly, talk about what has been implemented in phase two to give everyone a picture of just where we're at with technology. So I'll turn it over to Deb Klein, our manager of technology.
If everybody can remember, back in May of '98, the community and the school board approved a technology initiative, a 3-year technology plan. So we're about halfway through that. So I'm going to give you a quick halftime update here. Real quickly, I'll go through phase one. We very cleverly named them phase one for the first year, phase two for the second year, phase three for the third year. Last year was our first year of this. I'll quickly talk about what we implemented, how we supported it, and what impact we had on student learning. In this second phase, which began this September, I'll also go over an implementation status and how we changed our support structure this year, and then quickly tell you about what our plans are for next year. So as I sum up phase one, which ended last year, good news, we completed on schedule in June of '99 with everything we had planned, and we also completed within budget. When we were putting together this technology plan, we were looking not so much at where we were going to place hardware and software, but rather how we were going to integrate into the different curriculum areas. So this is how we started off. At the elementary level, we focused on language arts, specifically on grades 4, 5, and 6, putting 4 computers, a large monitor, and a printer in every one of those classrooms. At the secondary level, we focused on English, reading, and math, putting 1 computer networked in each of those classrooms with a large multimedia projector, a printer, and then access to computer labs throughout the school. As we begin implementing, I'll just run through a couple of stats here. We implemented over 1,200 computers through the course of the year last year across all 17 schools. We impacted 250 classrooms district-wide. We set up 4 library labs, 1 lab at the high school, library at the high school, 60 computers, 30 computers we put in each middle school library. We upgraded 15 computer labs throughout the district, business ed labs primarily. All new furniture, computers, LCD projectors like the one I'm using here, air conditioning. And we put in 100 PCs in the offices and planning centers throughout the district. In addition to this, we networked 6 buildings, the high school, the 3 middle schools, this educational services building, and also our transportation garage. All of these buildings through the network access have access now to the internet. We put that in place last year. And also access to 75 software programs. We successfully converted our Penimation system to the new upgraded version and started off with the beginnings of a website. And knowing that, putting all the hardware and software in place, another thing that I really wanted to spend a lot of time focusing on was putting in a support structure to support all of this. So I think of it in 2 respects. The first is technical support, and then the other is instructional support, how we're supporting the teachers in this whole initiative. Both of these areas are very important in any technology initiative at the school, in the school districts. So the first thing we did was hired 12 part-time technology aides. These people work directly in the building, so the front line of support when anything goes wrong in the building. That's something they don't have the time or the expertise to address. That gets bumped up to my staff at the district level, and I added 4 new full-time people to my staff. In addition to that, we also worked quite a bit throughout the year last year developing consulting partnerships with 2 companies. So that anything that my staff can't take on, we have someone to go through and give us guidance. In terms of instructional support, we had a lot of initiatives last year, especially being the first year of our technology plan. First thing we did is we took volunteers, 21 technology trainers. These are teachers throughout the district who took it upon themselves with some extra duty compensation to be the mentors and liaisons, technology mentors and liaisons in their building or their subject areas. With their help, we put on technology staff development classes at each of the in-service days last year. We offered over 35 after-school workshops. These are just optional volunteer workshops for teachers to attend. I'll just let you know that we had an attendance of over 750 throughout the school year. So that tells you the participation of our staff. In addition to that, we have, through the Montgomery County, with our Link to Learn grant funds, all of the schools in Montgomery County created a consortium together and offered hundreds of technology classes for free to all of our teachers. We had over 100 teachers enroll in those. We also started PDC as professional development courses. These are intense 15-hour college courses on different technology areas. Had about 75 teachers enroll in these. Sent a number of our technology trainers to different conferences to build our expertise here in the district. And also had 8 of our teachers participate in a program at the IU, Montgomery County IU, called the Tech PD program. They worked throughout the year to learn different technology, to build their technology expertise, and come back to the classroom, work on a project with their classroom, and they showcased that at the end of the last year. And the most importantly, what were we looking at? What did we learn in terms of what the students were doing? Throughout the year, myself as well as others participated in observations in the classroom to see what was happening, what was working, what was not working, where we needed additional help. I also spent time in 8 classrooms, specifically over a period of time, watching to see how they developed. In your packet, and everyone, if you didn't get these, they're back at the table, gives the lists of all, I have all the slides on here for you to take notes on. But if you flip towards the back, after the presentation, you will see an observation, one of the observations that I wrote up, I included in here. It's entitled Computers in the Primary Classroom. If you want to get time to take a look at this is only a couple of pages. This gives you a good idea of how we're right away utilizing the technology in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. So that's in here. In addition to observing in the classroom, sorry. I also collect from my technology trainers out at the schools. Every month they submit to myself a status report or journal on what's going on at their school that month. Any loose ends that need to be tied up, any reoccurring problems that I need to address, all of the initiatives they've taken on in their school. I also tend to set up a number of focus groups, meeting with groups of teachers, groups of students, groups of principals, to really ask a lot of questions, gather a lot of information, again, on what's going right, what's going wrong, what changes do we need to make, where do we need to focus our attention. And lastly, we created a form that we call the Tech Connections form. This is, for us, the easiest way to collect information, lesson plans, build a library of lesson plans that connect to our curriculum. And to really quickly give you an idea, let me jump to something here, of one way in which we do integrate the technology into the curriculum. Let me jump over here and try to maneuver this mouse. We have, let's say I'm a 4th grade teacher. They have, as far as their language arts curriculum, they're starting to plan for their next week. They go to their curriculum binder, they see that they're going to work in their signatures text, which is part of the curriculum, and we're going to start working on theme 3, which is natural changes. They pull out their teacher's edition, and they start to work through their teacher's edition, and they do a number of things. The first lesson in here is the students are reading the Great Tape by the Tree. They review the story with the students, they work on spelling activities, vocabulary activities, and then as they work through the manual, they come to, put this down, they come to a page in their teacher's manual, and I know this is hard to see, but the component in the corner is a technology component, which instructs the teacher how you move to the Amazing Writing Machine, which is a piece of software you have loaded in all the elementary school classrooms, what activity disk to pull, and work on an activity that leads the students through, in this case, they're writing descriptive paragraphs. It leads them through the writing process. This is one way. Now, this is written up in, like what I was mentioning, is a Tech Connections form. Again, this is hard to read, but it's in your packet. All of these that directly connect to the curriculum, and teachers also are creating these lesson plans every day as we go forward. We have hundreds of these that they've created lesson plans. They submit them to me. It gives a good gauge to me to see where we're going and where we're going with our curriculum, developing and adding to our curriculum. In this case, if I jump through this, and I'm not going to be able to see that from here either, but it's please summarize a recent activity you conducted using the technology. What was the objective? What student learning occurred? What technology was used and where? In the classroom? Did you move to the lab? What instructional strategies did you use? And then how successful was the lesson in terms of student learning? So like I said, day to day, they're creating these lesson plans and we're moving them into the curriculum. Now, if I hop back over, and that basically was a pretty complete update on phase 1, which was last year, completed last year. As I moved to the second phase over the summer, actually, let me back up. While we were in the midst of phase 1 last year, we had committees pulled together to look towards this year, what we wanted to do this year. All of these committees came up with recommendations, and I'll step through them because we're in the midst of implementing them all. In our primary level, if you can remember in phase 1, we put computers in the classrooms 4 to 6, and we concentrated on language arts. So now we're doing that same thing for the primary level. We put computers in the K through 3 classrooms, had software, different software titles installed, and we're starting the staff development on that strongly the next half of the year in that area. In grades 4 through 6, we had language arts this last year. Now we're focusing on math, new math software titles that were adopted, and they're being having staff development sessions on those as well. Then we come to special education. Spent a lot of time here looking at all the different facets of special education, learning support versus gifted versus speech and language, and we adopted technology in all of those areas. At the secondary level, since we concentrated on math and language arts the first year, the second year we wanted to round out the top 4 and hit science and social studies. So in social studies, we've just got their equipment in place, and a lot of what they use are the internet and a lot of the resources that are available in the library, online encyclopedias, atlases, etc. We've also starting to work with the teachers on the use of a webcam so that they can use some distance learning type of activities with classrooms all over the world. In the science curriculum at the secondary level, they make a lot of use, and this is what they recommended, of laser discs. Where they can bring difficult concepts to life for their classrooms. They can teachers can pull this information and create PowerPoint presentations, again, to make it easier to convey this to the students. We also purchased a number of probes where they can do experiments in the classroom, dump this data right into the computers, and analyze the data. So the kids are spending more time on analyzing the data than they are writing it up in their lab books. And lastly, we have something that we call a flex cam that we brought in. It's a microscope that you connect to the computer in your classroom, the monitor in your classroom, either the projector or the large monitor. All of the kids in the class can see what's going on under that microscope. So we're having a lot of fun in those areas. Also in foreign language, we started to pilot just a couple of classrooms. Business education, rounding those out, putting in, updating all of the business ed labs and classrooms. We also added 2 new classes this year to the business ed curriculum, an internet class at the high school level, and also a multimedia class that works with front page and PowerPoint, etc. Also technology education at the high school. Middle school, we have a pretty well-known national program in technology education. At the high school, needed some upgrading in all of those labs, so we put all new equipment into our graphics art lab, our mechanical drawings lab, our electricity and electronics lab at the high school. That we're still working on, be the end of the year by the time we get that completed. And sorry about that. Let me run through these. And then I'll give you the quick specs here on what we've put in place so far this year. We've installed 900 new computers this year. That brings us over 2,000 computers district-wide that we now have in the district. So for all 17 schools, we've impacted 500 more classrooms this year. We've installed 5 new computers in each of the elementary libraries. We've put in 4 new computer labs at the high school. At the middle school, knowing that and seeing quite quickly that they needed more access to computers, we're investigating. They also have a lack of space, which creates a problem. And we're looking at portable labs, using some of the wireless technology that's out there. We're piloting that at Pembroke, and hopefully before the end of the year, we'll have something in the middle schools. We put 75 more computers into our offices around the district. We're in the midst of networking the 13 elementary schools. Quick update on that. We just started the cabling. It was approved in December, started the cabling this week. Glenore Elementary School and Knapp Elementary School should be cabled by the end of the month. All 13 elementary schools should be cabled and on the network by the end of April. So at that point, our whole district will be on the network from every classroom, lab, library, office. Also, we're rolling out email. We've adopted Microsoft Exchange and Outlook as our email package, and we're beginning the training process and getting everyone up on email so that we can communicate more efficiently. Voicemail, we have voicemail system at the high school implemented last year, so we're also now learned that this is a great tool for communication. We're putting that in all the middle schools. As we speak, these are being installed. Satellite dish, we don't have that in yet, but we're putting in a dish at the high school that will then feed through the suburban cable channels all of the schools, in the district, so we can start to do some teleconferencing and whatnot. Back to satellite, a lot of the science programs especially have a lot of wonderful curriculum activities that you can, via satellite, you can participate in and bounce between the internet and a satellite program. Y2K issues. Happy to say that we made it through the year 2000 pretty easily, but we did spend a lot of time on making sure all of our systems were up to date for that. And information management. This is where I'm spending a lot of time this year and looking at the different areas of our organization, since we're a large organization of over 1,600 employees, on ways to improve our processes, make us work faster, more efficiently, reduce paperwork. And changes to support, as far as technical support, whereas last year we were scurrying just to get things in place, now we're optimizing our technical environment. We've added 13 more technology aids, saw that was very positive that way. Now last year, and now we have 25 technology aids at the building level. We're also automating our service requests. We just started that process so that soon teachers too will be able to report any problems they're having in the classroom right online. That helps us communicate and respond more quickly. I continue to offer training opportunities for my staff and incentives to keep them here. We have a good staff, and I don't want to lose them to a very marketable industry outside of the district. And then we continue to develop our consulting partnerships, and that's proved to be very worthwhile to us and to keeping us going. Just to give you an idea of where we stand here, I said we're a little over 2,000 computers district-wide. We also have, for all of you that know computers, about 45 file servers throughout the district. So we're becoming a very large organization, technical organization. As far as instructional support, doing pretty much the same thing we did last year. It seemed to prove pretty fruitful. Spending a lot of time. We did add 8 new technology trainers for those subject areas that we brought on. But a lot of the same opportunities, and teachers are continuing to pick these up and increase their expertise. And then, as we look toward phase 3, if I'm not completely exhausted this far, and these first 2, let me spend just a couple of minutes on. If I back up and we talk about when we first developed this plan, we looked at ways in which technology can be very important and very necessary to a school district. I look at it as in 4 different ways. One is an administrative tool, so we work more efficiently, whether that be in the offices, via email and communicating, using word processing spreadsheets, that type of thing, or in the classrooms using online grading programs. But also the 3 areas that are more student-centered are, 1, integrating the technology tools into the curriculum. That's what we spent a lot of time on last year and we continue to do. That was our main focus. But these 2 areas we're continuing to develop because They're pretty drastic changes to the curriculum. The first one being technology literacy. That is a curriculum where we're developing the students' technology skills in terms of keyboarding, word processing, using a spreadsheet, using a database, all of those types of skills. In the past, we have a curriculum that's our business ed curriculum from 7th grade to 12th grade. Now, with all of the new tools we have available, we can expand that from kindergarten through 12th grade so that all of our students graduate or work through the levels of the grade levels with achieving certain competencies in technology equitably across the student population. And then the information literacy. And that is basically an explosion of our library curriculum. Whereas probably when I was in school, the teacher said, you know, go do a report on the Vietnam War, and you scurried going through your library and the resources available in the public library for 5 sources. Now, as many of you can attest to, you jump on the internet, you go look up Vietnam War, and 5,000 hits, 5,000 pieces of information. You go to online encyclopedias all over the place. So the way we teach our students is much different. Now we have to teach them to cull that information and find out what's appropriate, what's not, how to synthesize and make sense of the information glut that's out there. So that's a revision of our existing library curriculum. In addition to that, though, in phase 3, since we've looked at the 4 main subject areas, language arts, math, social studies, science, now we're focusing on art, music, consumer human sciences, which we know of as home ec, health and PE, foreign language, ESL, and then at the elementary level, we're starting to look at social studies and science since we're taking theirs one year at a time. And I believe that's it. How'd I do, Chief? I thought it was, I appreciate you giving me time to do this. I think it's important. I know this community has invested a lot of money in technology. I think it's important that I communicate to you where we are.
Anybody have any questions?
It's not as what you would expect.
Why, Frank? What do you got there? Yes, go
How
ahead.
about turning lights on?
Based on what we have such projects, I think go out on the internet and find information. And it's later than where teachers use their own.
She wanna package it, she can get me another lever.
Can we get access to your library, your information from them?
At this time, we can't. We're putting in place where you can tap into the network, and that's something else that I'm going to spend a lot of time on next year, is that home and school connection, so that from home and from our public library and Montford Technical Career Center, that we can tap into the network and use some of our resources.
We have some parental, like, I think my daughter, what she can have access to, so you have to consider that.
And we're putting the
No, I can't do that.
we're putting that in place so that we have that ability, depending on how we want to roll that out and allow it.
Don,
Yes.
are we gonna allow just ask some questions first with Debbie and then let the public have questions too?
Yes, I was kind of informal here. This information, yes, your question.
Well, maybe something that needs to be brought to the public's attention, and maybe the media is here tonight, maybe they can help us with this technology problem. Debbie, how successful have we been to collect the parent permission forms to allow our children access to the internet?
That's an area where we definitely could use some help. At this time, and I haven't checked for a couple of months, but roughly about half of our
So half the students can't use a good portion of this technology?
Exactly. Half of our students have brought back internet permission slips. The others are not allowed to use the internet at this time.
So does that mean we have to also support 2 tiers of information still?
And it's becoming more and more difficult. We have to support 2 different sets of instruction. Those that can use the internet, those that can't use the internet.
But I know from my experience with a lot of different publications, a lot of these things are no longer in print. They're now coming either CD-ROM, and now they're even going to the internet, which means that, they're not going to publish CD-ROMs or in print.
Absolutely, and that's funny you should say that, because at the next Educational Service Committee, I wanted to bring this subject up, because we're already noticing some of our reference materials that we typically got on CD-ROM. You're right, they're not putting them on CD-ROM. You can only get them through internet access. So we're already starting to run into a problem.
If the students'
An equity
parents aren't
problem.
giving them permission to have this access to some of this technology, these kids are going to be severely disadvantaged in the future to be able to complete their projects and what they need.
It looks like it's leading that way.
Then maybe we need to let the parents know the safety requirements that we also have in place.
Oh, okay.
For
Do you want me to
internet access.
address that real quickly?
I mean, I signed it, but I know, and that there's.
What are we doing to collect the forms? We've made another concerted effort. I mean, I'm sure we're sending them out every year, but are we making a concerted effort to get to the parents?
We've made several different efforts and different ways to try to communicate that information. And I don't know the magical answer to it, but in some schools we had more success than others. In some age levels, middle school, a little bit more luck than we've had at the high school. But we got the feeling that many of the students simply didn't take them home or don't bother with it and don't care about whether or not they can get access until they face the impact of not being able to research something.
How about,
Librarians, I know,
do we
work on
do
it.
mailings to the homes of the students once a year with extra forms and other things? I mean, we send a lot of paperwork on the beginning of the school year.
I'm not sure how many mailings we've made on them.
I think
Do you
there
know,
was
Debbie?
one.
I think Christine I know we did a mailing
least
last
one.
year. Did we do one this,
Can we
beginning of
have,
this
can
year
you
as well?
guys, at the educational services level, at least have that conversation so that, I mean,
That's
if it's
right.
convenient for us, I mean,
Or
we've all
phone call.
experienced the problems at the high school where they fill our trash cans when we send paperwork home. I mean, we all know that's a reality.
Or phone call.
Well, we
Well,
have
we
some
don't have
ideas.
facilities for that.
We have some ideas about how to address it, and we want to bring that to ed
If we
services.
can just raise that, participation level, it'll have a
Yeah, give
positive
extra credit
impact
or
on us,
something.
because how are we gonna have a real good gauge of how the technology is impacting our students when we find out 25 or 30% of our students aren't able to access the technology we're
That's
giving?
headlines in the Mars newspaper.
I think also, as Deb said, it's going to eventually become kind of a financial issue because we're finding more and more the things that we purchase,
We can't
we don't
manage
have to
security.
purchase as much because we can get them through the internet. So it's the types of things that we do purchase in hard copy that students have access to, much more financially feasible to get them through the internet than purchase them every year. So we need to
I
get
didn't
more and
bring-
more
I didn't
involved.
bring that up to make this presentation less than what it was.
No.
It was an excellent presentation.
Yes.
You're doing a phenomenal
Excellent.
job for us. And obviously,
Yes, you are.
we're way ahead of the curve now on technology in a lot of areas, but, there's
Stay
a little
ahead.
responsibility somewhere else here now. Now that we're giving it to them and they're able to develop it and use it and incorporate it into education, we gotta work on that part now. Get
Am
everybody
I-
involved.
Deb, am I understanding right that if they haven't sent that form in, they also cannot participate in the classroom instruction that might relate to internet use also?
No.
This is independent.
Only the independent, because I wanted to say if that's the case, if they couldn't participate in a classroom, then parents might have
But you heard it
a
tonight.
different opinion about one versus the other.
Debbie, we're managing two platforms of information, the printed material CD-ROM, and now, a lot of that's being discontinued, and they have to go online to get the information we want. At some point, we're not gonna be able to get any of that, and we're gonna have all online, and if these students aren't granted access to that, what do they do for information?
Right.
You
Well,
have one of their
I'm-
friends go online to get the information?
I know of one mailing, that was last year. I don't know of any this year unless those mailings were only to those who we did not have papers for.
We had
But when a student moves all through the system, that paper follows them, correct? There isn't anything from when they transfer from elementary to middle school. Once it's done, it's over with.
Another thing that Christine and I had talked about that may alleviate some of the fears, if there are some out there, is on NPTV running a program on the way we're using the internet here in the district and the precautions we have in place and how you can use the internet with the kids at home. And hopefully that might
How about
help.
at least under community relations, we can deal with the issue of possibly surveying parents who haven't sent the forms and to find out why, and see if it's that issue of confidence or safety, and maybe we can start to address those issues, because at some point, if your student doesn't have the access they need for what they need to be successful, they're gonna fall behind real far and real fast.
Why don't we think about maybe a single sheet frequently asked question type thing that might address some of those common concerns that if we're able to think of those that are most common in the minds of people who hesitate to offer their authorization for this. And perhaps that's where the phone calls could help us. Even if you only reach a portion of those students that haven't signed, if we get to hear what it is that's keeping that parent from okaying that, then maybe we can see what it is that we have
What's
to
your
address.
window for the loss of that printed material CD-ROM? I mean, do you really think it's going to, I know it's drying up tremendously for some of the things I use, so I can't see, My window would be 2 or 3 years, we're gonna have a problem.
And not only that, but what I'm running into the problem is that there are some that come out on the internet. It's much better for us because it's updated every day. That information it's much more timely, it's much less to manage. But right now, we're looking at, and that's the other thing I was gonna bring up to you, we're facing investing in both platforms. So I have to invest in an internet subscription, but also invest in CD-ROM so that we have that equity, and it's becoming an expensive investment.
Debbie, the parents that have said no, are they, no, my child may not, are they saying why?
No, they don't. The way we addressed the form was they just send it in if yes. We don't get them, some we get back that are absolute no's, but in the most case, we just don't get them back. So we don't know.
Yeah, we had a problem when we first developed the form under policy. You had to give permission. I mean, it couldn't be just, if you don't say no, we're gonna let you do it. It had to be a positive response to do it. And obviously, that's causing problems.
Well, it's the same thing we did with the guidance program. You had to opt in, so nobody had anything forced on them against the wishes of the parents. Just,
But that's created, to some degree, the issue we face now. What we want to do at Ed Services is talk about some of the efforts that we've put forth so far to get signatures and to get people involved in it, and also some of the new ideas that we have, and then bring that, discuss that with you.
I have one question. I believe you mentioned that, you said that they're putting up a satellite to connect with suburban cable?
I mean,
At the high school?
using suburban cable as our network to feed from that satellite feed to each of the buildings in the district.
Okay, at the high school. Did you say at the high
That'll
school?
be the central point.
Because I know that was an Adelphia service area, and I was wondering, the high school is Adelphia.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misstated that as Adelphia.
So it is Tolmanson Township is Adelphia cable.
Right
And
now,
that's why I
we're
wondered-
district-wide under one cable company, and I get confused from where I live, so, but we are under one cable company and satellite
Okay, so you won't be
feed
mixing
will be
suburban in
called-
with, it'll be Adelphia.
I apologize.
That's okay, I just wondered.
One idea to help out maybe with this, I know that when my kid comes home with a report card, I sign it off. Maybe we can incorporate that into our redesign of our
But
report
do
card
we
somehow
sign
to
off
do
on the
it.
upper level? We don't sign.
Well, you can
the
have it
upper
as a
level, do
separate
we?
issue on that report card.
That's a good
We're in the
idea.
business-
Set it
We're in the
up,
business
send it
of,
there.
revamping the report card, maybe we
You
can
have to,
include that.
you have to sign the course of study for your kids. It could be on there too,
Yeah.
that card.
Well, we have a column there that's going to be referred to committee. Does anybody have any other subject to bring up?
One other
Bruce?
item, you mentioned emails spreading throughout the district. Is there an opportunity somewhere down the road here, I'm not going to push us beyond our constraints, but is there an opportunity where families may be able to email staff with questions instead of trying to track them down by phone calls?
And we're putting that into place, maybe you could
Some of that
address
exists now.
that, but
Some individual teachers have that set up now.
technically, we're putting that into place.
We
It's
don't
just a
have
matter of
email
time to get it.
addresses.
That's what I'm saying. We have to draw up regulations and to make sure that it's equal too from building to building and people are using it.
That's what I'm saying, let's not push once the functionality's in place, we might want to.
Can we get Lou an email?
Debbie, Vince Betsy said the satellite dish is gonna go in the middle of the hockey field. Can you just spell that?
No.
Where is that gonna be placed?
The football field.
She's worried.
I'm not exactly sure. It's not
On
here.
the roof, I would believe.
On top of the 4-H building?
I know, Bob Gilmer's been working with John Strobel with that.
It's gonna be on the roof.
See, these guys know
She
everything.
didn't know everything.
They know
Where's it gonna go? It's
No
satellite
doubt, ask a kid. That's how I look at it. On the roof,
on the roof of the high school.
yes.
Any other questions of the board relative to this? Anybody in the audience have a question? That was a very-
One quick thing, to actually see this in action, again, an advertisement on April 5th, we're having what's called a Tech Connect Showcase at the high school, which will showcase all the new technology, and probably another good time to try to address that internet situation and show some people what it actually does.
That's a good point.
Parents invited?
Vince, to
Parents
answer your
are,
question,
yes, we'll be inviting parents.
We have a couple of workshops going on during that showcase that we are orienting parents to the internet, inviting parents to join the workshop, and what precautions we take here and what they can do at home.
Yeah, I
So that
thought,
will be
did I
good.
just read something in a
Yes, newsletter,
and it's between what, 6 and 8?
4:30 and 8.
4:30 to 8.
Okay,
And
that's what I read.
each,
All right.
in order to get a lot of parents out, each building principal is required to have a presentation, including students and staff, so.
Okay.
We'll have a number of booths set up with computers, network access, and also display tables that they can display their work. So I think it'll be exciting.
And you'll have a
One
booth
last-
just for internet Sunday?
Yes, Bruce, go ahead.
One last thing, Deb. I know there was a lot of concern voiced by students last year with regards to the WebSense software we're using to restrict access to certain internet sites. Has that gone through review and some sites loosened up at all this year?
Not yet.
Actually, no, not at this time.
Okay.
The same sites are being blocked, so we haven't made any modifications to our site blocking software.
Not yet.
Is that because we don't have time?
Except blocking sites
We don't have
that
time
we-
to do that? We're limited in resources in doing it, or we haven't gotten the right
It
feedback?
just
we
hasn't
don't-
bubbled up to the level where we see that there's a district-wide need to do that.
So the teachers and the students need to make the technology department aware of sites that they're having problems getting to?
Yeah, what we've asked them to do is, the students, I think the student government and teachers as well, are supposed to bring that information to the principals. We continue to talk about it at principals meeting, and at that point where everybody comes to an agreement, then maybe we can make some changes there.
Good, so if the information flows up from the bottom, we'll be able to deal with it.
I think also what we wanted to do was err on the side of caution to begin.
Right, but I had heard.
But we're finding, if I try to bring up some schools on the internet that I want to check what they have on their website sometimes, depending on what I put in there, it gets blocked out also. So we're all frustrated to some extent, but
Right.
better safe than
I
sorry.
want the public and the students to know that there is a method by which to air their grievances and see if we can resolve it. And it's work their way through their teachers and through the building administrators, and then we can have the WebSense program looked at.
Just to let you know too, that online via the company that produces WebSense, you can actually post requests to open up a site, and often they do.
Because we're using their generic list, correct? We're using their recommended list
Yes.
of blockages
We're using
right
their
now.
database, except there are some sites that we block, that we come across that we block.
We can block additional ones, can we release ones that they have blocked, or are we shut out from that? In other words, if they've blocked it out in their package, can we remove that block?
We can remove the block. Many times what you find is they have a link to something that is, or embedded in there, or different. For the most part, the site is adequate and responsible, but there are just some spots where it isn't, and that's why they're being blocked.
Debbie, thanks for your presentation. It was very good. It brings us all up to date. This meeting is adjourned.